and square dancing. And I just found out today that he danced on the Grand Ole Opry for their 75th anniversary. Yeah, so we've got some stories to tell.
I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. I told my wife, I said, you know, I've been kind of anxious, you know, to put on them golden slippers and dance on them golden streets up in heaven. I said, but you know, I don't see how it's going to get much better than that. I'm going to hang around here for a while. So.
Lou lives over in Summersville, and he calls a lot of four couple squares square dances. So that would mean couples, you're facing in a square in each direction, 1, 2, 3, 4. And Lou calls those, and then there's also, and so that tradition happens from sort of Helvetia west are these four couple squares, but from the Virginia line to like Helvetia Elkins, there are big circle dances, and they use a lot of the same figures. So I'm just gonna, what I want to do for this is let everybody, feel free to ask a question at any moment. I'll ask some questions, but just raise your hand and we'll ask them. First we'll start with Lou talking about those two dance traditions, and we'll just build from there. So do not hesitate to ask anything.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, I've been around the square dance scene for a long, long time. Now, the complexion of square dancing has really changed in Appalachia. Only just recently it's starting to change, due partly to what she's talking about. You know, the mountain dance trail and people mixing and learning off each other. But you know, in West Virginia we had basically 3 or 4 cultures of square dancing, and to tell you a little bit about that, you know, square dancing and clogging or flatfoot dancing, you know, it dates back over 400 years here in Appalachia, and it was brought here, you know, by the earliest, you know, the early pioneers that came to this country and settled, and and particularly the Scotch and the Irish. You see, the Scotch and the Irish, they settled here, but. Square dancing, you know, like I said, we had, most all of it had its roots in the English country dances. Most all the figures we do today have roots in the English contra dances or the English play party games. And like I said, they all came from Europe, you know, years and years ago. Now, getting back to the 4 or 5 cultures that we had, depending on how much ethnic influence a particular area had, then, you know, usually that determined the tradition for that particular area of dance. For instance, you know, along the border counties of Virginia and West Virginia, like Becky said, you know, most of the dancing that was done up there was the Big Circle Mountain Dance, the Big Circle Mountain Dance. If you went over to Helvetia and that Swiss community over there, you know, there was another culture over there, and they danced a certain way. And then if you went to central West Virginia, around Glenville and Bridgeport and places like that, then they danced a certain way. And this was generally due to the ethnic influence for that particular area. Then you went down around, you know, Charleston and over around Ripley and places like that. Then there was another culture over there, and they danced. Now, some of in central West Virginia, not too far from here, over at Marlington, in Pocahontas County and Greenbrier County, there was a culture over there. Now, some of these counties and some of these places, you know, those traditions remain the same today. They remain the same today, but they're starting to mix a little bit with with different colors moving around and people going from area to area and dancing. Take for instance at Marlington, for instance. Now they dance a big circle dances over there, and that culture over there has pretty much stayed the same over the past 100 years over there. 100 years over there, you know, it's pretty much stayed the same. Same, they got 7 or 8 figures they dance over there, and they've been dancing them ever since I can remember. Now I go back into that culture over there, way back in the 40s, you see. So that's a long ways, and I haven't seen much change in it over there.
Lou, what would those figures be? You said they do the same 7 figures.
What's that?
What kind of figures would those be?
Okay, the figures, they got 7 or 8 figures over there that they've danced for the last 60 or 70 years. And the names of those figures, I can almost give them all to you. I got them written down in a piece of paper. But they dance a figure called Lady Round the Lady. That's one figure they dance. They dance a figure 8 over there. They duck for the oyster and dig for the clam. They do a figure over there that the only place I've ever heard it called, by that name, they do one over there called Milk a Cow and Wean the Calf. Now, and I've studied that, and I can't find any correlation between the calls and how they do the figure. Now, for instance, if you were going to do a bird in a cage, then you could see some correlation between the figure and the calls. You see, a bird in the cage with 6 hands around, and you put a little birdie in the cage, and you make a little 6 hands around, and you got a bird in the cage. But this one particular figure is called, Milk a Cow and Wean the Calf. And if that figure was danced somewhere else, it would be swing your corner, swing your partner, swing your corner, and swing your partner. And the pattern for that call is milk a cow, swing your corner. Now wean the calf, swing your partner. 75, swing your corner. Trade her right back for $1.50, swing your partner. That figure's called milk a cow and wean the calf, and they've danced that for 100 years over there.
Lou, what are some other patter, can you share, like chase the rabbit, chase the squirrel?
Okay, chase the rabbit, chase the squirrel, they call that. And the pattern that I use, chase the rabbit, chase the squirrel, I say chase the rabbit, chase the squirrel, chase that pretty girl around the world. Now the possum, now the coon, chase that big boy over the moon. See? Now, that's pretty much the same pattern that everybody uses when they call, chase the rabbit, chase the squirrel. And a lot of these figures are danced in all of these different cultures, and it's not uncommon to see, for the figure to be recognizable and be called by a different name, you see.
Lou, how do you think patter came about, like square dance patter?
Well, I've researched this, for years and years, and that's a good question. How did patter come around? Now, let me tell you about the square dance caller. Now, the primary purpose of the square dance caller is simply to tell the dancers what to do. Now, if you don't tell the dancers what to do, especially in an environment where you have beginning dancers and dancers that are less experienced. If you don't tell them what to do, then they're not going to have fun and they're not going to dance. Now, patter, if you're calling to a group of people, this gets back to the community thing. We've got a community here where you got a caller, and I go back and the caller calls the same figures and he calls to the same people every Saturday night, and they almost know what to do when the caller opens his mouth. And if he forgets to make a call, they'll do it anyway because they've been dancing the figures. But the caller does a lot of things. Caller comes about as fillers. It's what we call filler talk during the figures, like the grand right and left, for instance. If you called the grand right and left and you had a big circle, they was going around the ring, and it took 2 or 3 minutes to go around. Nobody said anything, and you just danced. Then you would use patter in there, and patter came about to keep the figure from being so boring, and it actually added a little bit to to the dance itself. You know, the patter sometimes drives the fiddler, you know.
Crazy.
And, and, you know, then the fiddler, he drives the dancer, and then it all comes together.
Lou, we had a question. So patter, for those of you that don't know, would be like, instead of saying like lady round the like lady follow this person and then back out and follow the gent, it would be chase the rabbit, chase the squirrel, chase that pretty girl around the world. Or it would be like when instead of saying circle to the left, how would you say, you know, instead of just saying circle to the left, say it with some patter.
Here you can give you an example of a circle pattern. You say, all join hands and circle left. Yeah, keep on going, you ain't through yet. And my Aunt Sally ain't no fool. She put a saddle on a humpback mule. Right on around that ring you go, right on around to the one you know. You see, it's just pattern that you get into a rhythm with the dancers and you get into a rhythm with the caller, and it does add a little bit to the dance.
It's like
poetry. And speaking for myself as a caller, I can use as much patter as anybody that I know. I'm serious. I know a lot of it. Go
I
ahead.
have a question. When you do the patter, do you ad-lib, make it up as you go?
No, well, most of the time I can because I've had 50 years experience doing it.
Yeah.
And but most of it is pattern that I've used over and over again. For instance, 9-pin pattern. It's a 4-couple dance that I do. That's a fun dance. And you know, I'll tell stories and verses it is, and I have all them written down. You see, but the pattern, I've had so much experience and done so much of it, I can make it up as I go.
I've been calling for about 3 years, and like I'm just now getting to the point where I can add little things, but not very much. Like I just don't feel as comfortable. But maybe when I've been calling for 40 years or 50 years, I'll be able to do it too. I'm gonna do one thing. Could the musicians, like Dave and Andrew, Ben, grab an instrument so Lou can try? We can hear Lou call a little bit of 9-pin to you playing, and you can ask your question, Michael. Sorry.
Was the patter ever political during the Union poll wars 100 years ago?
What's that?
Was the patter ever political during the Cold Wars 100 years ago, or during bad times? Did the patter change?
I can't do that. I can't answer that question. I don't really know. Now, most of the pattern, let me say something about that. Most of the pattern that I use has an old-time theme, you know, because I'm old and it goes back into that. Now, you know, I can use pattern like, you know, a knockdown sound, a picked up gait, take them gals and promenade, you see, because I know what a knockdown sound is and I know what a picked up gait is. But there's no way that Becky could know what a knockdown sound is and a picked up gait, you see. And most of the pattern that I use has an old time theme, you know, like, you know, out in the garden early in the morning, you know, dig them furrows and plant that corn, you see. Plant that corn straight in the rows, you know, one for the garden, one for the crows, you see. Now that's all, that's all fill-in pattern that I kind of grew up with. And younger callers have to learn that from old guys like me, you know, because they'd have to say, you know, down to the Pizza Hut, have some fun. Me and my gal ain't got much money, you see. So that's kind of the pattern that has to use today.
Hey, Lou, can we have you stand when you're calling so we can hear?
Oh wait, you want to be in the middle, don't you?
So I asked these guys too because they've played. How many dances do you think you guys have played for?
Twice.
2.
Twice.
I played the Glenville Festival since '77 every year. We used to do 3 nights in a row. And I don't know, have any of you been to the Glenville? It's 8 squares usually or more. And once you finish one, people shoving them out of the way to get the next one going. It's a busy, and when we were younger, we would do all night, then go play jam all night. We were worn out at the end of the week. But now I do it one night of the fest. But God, as far as how many, I don't know.
Yeah, like how many a year do you think y'all play?
I had since '77 or before.
Yeah.
That's
I
back
mean,
when I started coming in '77.
so just kind of like in a year, how many square dances do you think you get hired for?
Well, this past year, we did Glenville, Vandalia, half a dozen, Sutton,
Yeah.
probably half a dozen or so, me, anyway.
More.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About 5 to 10.
Because we,
There's over 100. There's over 100 dances in the state in a year through the Mountain Dance Trail, and that's all over the state. But it's over 100.
Is that subsidized or is it?
No, they're all community events. So Annie Stroud is like a programmer for Morgantown, which is one of our dances that's
That's
on
a
there.
fun
And the
one.
idea was that Augusta would put out a way of just letting people know that it was happening. So prior to this, I think we're in our 5th year, is that people just didn't know. You could be living in Weston and you didn't know there was a square dance in Morgantown, and Morgantown didn't know there was a square dance in Weston, and Weston didn't know if there was one in Elkin, so, or no one knew there was one in Helvetia. You know, it was just like all these communities were dancing, but no one knew about each other. So it's not so, yeah, some of them are. Yeah, there's been some support, but that's the biggest thing is going to them, is the biggest support
Yeah.
that you can do. Yeah.
and it's definitely picked up like out in the world too. We do a lot. Like DC's got a huge one, and
Yeah.
Baltimore and LA. And
So do they do contra dancing here? Is that not?
No, well, like some dances, like Morgantown does some contra dances, but the dancing that's here is Appalachian square dances. And so if you come to the dance tonight, you'll see all of that. Lou, you don't call any contra dances, do you?
So
Yeah.
is
I call one
is that more
contra,
regional?
only,
Yeah, it's definitely more regional. And so the figures here have been going on with the same figures for generations.
the only contra I call is Virginia Reel. And I call it because a lot of people like to do it, and I call it in a hoedown fashion. You know, I don't call it in the 64-beat phrase of the music. You know, I just let them dance and do what I tell them. And so now some of them contra callers, you know, they grit their teeth, you know, when I call them, I do it anyway. But anyway, that's only contra I call. Let me tell you something about the 9-pin, if that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, I
The
think you
9-pin is a 4-couple formation where you have one odd lady in the middle. So you got 5 ladies, and you only got 4 gents. See, now, and when all the ladies get disengaged, you know, from their partners, and then there's a word in the 9-pin that we use is called swing. Now, some callers blow a whistle, and some callers do a lot of things, or clap their hands to, you know, when they're supposed to swing. But I tell stories and incorporate the word swing. And when I say
Whenever you
swing,
hear
they
it,
run out and
yeah.
try to grab one of those men, and somebody's left over.
Yeah.
Lou
And
is-
when Lou says odd lady, he means an extra lady.
If y'all
Always
come
good
to
to
the
have.
start after tonight, I'll call the 9-pin reel.
and this is the dance, I think Lou
Now,
is.
let me tell you, it's not a dance that somebody made up. It does have roots. And I researched it when I started calling, and there's a dance, a play party dance, it's called Tucker. And the 9-pin was